We are grateful for your partnership and your support and your friendship, and we are thrilled to have you here with us today. As you will see, we have lots of people in the building today, and that is not unusual. You see them setting up for the symphony around the corner. We've got a Toyota event here tomorrow. We've got a wedding tomorrow night. And then we have lots and lots of school children. We've had tens of thousands of them in the last month alone. Many of these school children are here through your help. Their field trips are underwritten by the William and Elise Winter Endowment. We completed the fundraising, $5 million, the initial goal for that endowment last year, had a big celebration. And the society helped us, and many of you helped us individually. And you see the fruits of your generosity today with all these children who are here in the building. Thank you very much for helping us with a cause that was so close to Governor Winter's heart. And if you haven't had a chance to give, it's not too late. We have a very special opening session here today. This year marks the 60th anniversary of the death of Medgar Evers. Today, his daughter and my good friend Renna Evers-Everette will be with us. She will be with us virtually as of this morning because she had a positive COVID test. So we are sorry that Renna has COVID, and we are grateful that Renna is forging ahead and going to talk to us anyway. She's going to talk about her father's legacy and her family's legacy. And that legacy lives on in these museums. Nearly 20 years ago, Myrlie Evers made an extraordinary gift to the people of Mississippi when she presented her papers and the papers of Medgar Evers to the Department of Archives and History. It's one of the most significant collections in the department's care, and it was instrumental to us in planning for these museums, the exhibits for these museums. We remain grateful to Mrs. Evers, to Renna, and to the Evers family and the Evers Institute for that gift and for their strong and ongoing support for these museums and this department. So friends, thanks for coming. I look forward to visiting with you and enjoying this outstanding program over the next couple of days. And now I am honored to introduce another friend and president of the society, Daphne Chamberlain, who will be in conversation with Renna Evers-Everette.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It has been a pleasure serving in this capacity over the past year, and it's wonderful to see this room full of so many beautiful faces that are a true reflection of the state of Mississippi. So please give yourselves a round of applause for being here. So our guest for today's conversation is no stranger to many of us in this room. And 10 years ago, she forged a relationship with us and that has been maintained over time. For me, my relationship with our guest has yielded a true friendship and camaraderie that I deeply respect and appreciate. Renna Evers-Everette is the daughter of civil rights activists Medgar Evers and Myrlie Evers-Williams. Renna graduated from the New York Fashion Institute of Technology with a degree in business merchandising and has had a successful career in communications. In 2012, Renna returned to Mississippi to continue her parents' legacy and became the executive director of the Medgar and Myrlie Evers Institute, which was founded by her mother. While she continues to be inspired by their integrity and their courageous leadership and tenacious spirit, Renna also serves as an inspiration for so many young people as she speaks nationally to cultivate positive social change. Today, the Mississippi Historical Society is delighted to have her with us, not here in person, but virtually. And I'm grateful that she accepted the invitation to join us as our featured speaker for the 2023 annual meeting. And I introduce to some and present to others, Renna Evers-Everette. So let's give her a round of applause virtually. But before we begin, I must frame the conversation. And as Katie just mentioned, this year marks the 60th anniversary of the assassination of Mississippi civil rights leader and icon, Medgar Myrlie Evers. While this may be a watershed moment in our history, and that one that is etched in the memory of so many of us sitting in this room, and have impacted so many of us sitting in this room, the work that has been done since 1963 has continued to shine light on the life Medgar Evers lived and the legacy that has been sustained. So for the next hour, we will be in conversation about the life and legacy of not just Medgar Evers, but also that of Myrlie Evers Williams, as told by their daughter, Renna. Please note that there will be some time reserved towards the end for questions from the audience. But as I take a seat before we begin, you all will now be able to hear Medgar in his own words. Thank you all for coming.
We're not just interested in voting so that conditions will be improved for Negroes. We want conditions improved for everybody.
Married while in college, Medgar and Myrlie Evers moved to Mound Bayou. He worked with T.R.M. Howard, activist, doctor, and owner of an insurance company. While selling insurance, Medgar began to educate and organize Black citizens to register to vote. Working with the Regional Council of Negro Leadership, he helped launch a boycott of gasoline stations with segregated restrooms. In the early 60s, Medgar was there when James Meredith enrolled at the University of Mississippi. He was there in Biloxi to desegregate the beaches. He started the NAACP Youth Councils, fighting for equality in Jackson. He could reach across generations and class. He was the face of the Mississippi movement. He spoke across the state and the country, moving masses with his weaponry of words.
Here in Mississippi, all of you know that your tax dollar and mine is taken from us, not because we give it willingly, but it's taken from us unwillingly, and it's given to the Citizens Council, it's given to the Sovereignty Commission at the rate of $4,500 a month. And why is it given?
So that was Medgar in his own words. Before we begin with the conversation, hi, Ms. Renna. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Chris Goodwin and the entire audiovisual team here at the Mississippi Department of Archives and History for providing us with that video footage. We thought that it was extremely important, but also critical for you all to have some historical context with us being here for the 2023 Mississippi Historical Society annual meeting, but also to be able to hear the voice of one of Mississippi's greatest leaders ever. But now we are joined, unfortunately virtually, but we are so grateful that you are here with us, and we hope that you get better soon. But let's welcome our guest speaker and conversant, Ms. Renna Evers-Everette.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm so sorry. I really was looking so forward to seeing everyone in person because so many of you are friends, colleagues, and this was one of the highlights that I've had since I was asked, and I so appreciate the invitation to come in and spread some words about my parents that you already know, but to hear it again from the heart of a daughter. And so I thank you so much. And Miss Katie Blount, It's been a joy working with you for over 10 years, and with the Mississippi Department of Archives and History, and you've done a fantastic job in preserving all of the documentation, photographs, artifacts that were given in that donation from our family. So I just wanted to say thank you very much. And Dr. Chamberlain, it's always, always a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. And I'll add this, Renna and I had breakfast this past weekend, so it was a wonderful opportunity to be able to come together. And of course, it has been a relationship or a friendship that has been sustained over 10 years now. So you all here in this room are a part of that Evers family. And we are pleased that this legacy continues, not just through the work that Ms. Renna is doing, but through these two wonderful museums right here that we're sitting in. But so that we can begin, Ms. Renna, our first question is going to be, of course, we're looking at life as an Evers child through your eyes, and we want to hear your voice. What was it like growing up in the Evers household?
Fun. A lot of love, a lot of love. It was like every child running around, curious, and our curiosity was always fed by both of our parents, but especially by my dad, because he was very, very childlike when it came to being around us. He came to our level in order to make us feel like we were important, and he did not do that just for his children. He was like the Pied Piper of Guine Street. And so everybody, when his car would drive up, everybody would say, Mr. Evers, Mr. Evers, he's here, and want to have him run up and down Guine Street, or throw the football or baseball, and sometimes he played hide and go seek with us. So he was always a wonderful father, but a mentor and a friend to all generations. So it was great. And my mom, oh my goodness, Guine Street, and I wish I was there because I'm sure there's some people in the audience, but Guine Street was a very, still is very special. And the pride in the neighborhood, and the garden, their lawns, and their competitiveness, their friendly competitiveness when it came to the ladies of Guine Street that did all the wonderful brunches, and they did competitions with cleaning and cleaning day, and where we as children had to learn, but our favorite time was to when our mothers had to wax the floors, clean and wax the wood floors, and we get to put on white socks and skate all around the house. That was one of our favorite times in the whole neighborhood.
And so you're talking about both of your parents. And of course, one of the things that you and I talked about was why December, the month of December, was so special. If you would tell us why the month of December is so special, because that's the beginning of a love story. And as you go through those details, tell us about the relationship that your parents had.
Well, to start out their married life, they got married December 24th, 1951. So Christmas Eve, they got married. But to go all the way back, which was not a long time, but to go back a year when they met in 1950 at Alcorn A&M on the very first day that my mother stepped on to the campus. And I'm sure many of you have heard this story, but it just livens my heart every time that my mother recounts it. is when they were being toured as the freshman orientation around campus. And they heard this loud, thunderous roar coming, and they didn't know what it was. They thought, because it was agricultural school, that it was cattle. Well, no, they turned around and it was the football team. And my father was on the football team. And so, as my mother claims, that they were coming to check out, as she said, the fresh meat, but the young ladies that were coming. And so my father came up to her, and she was leaning against a light pole. And my father came up to her and told her that, you know, you might not want to lean against the light pole, you might get shocked. And, you know, my father was 7 years, he was a veteran. He'd come back from World War II, Normandy, and come back to go to college, to finish the high school that he left before, and to come back and go to college. And so my mother was there, a brand new freshman, 7 years younger than my dad, and her aunt and her grandmother told her, just don't get engraced with these veterans. That's the wrong thing to do. And so, of course, the first day that happened. But, you know, she kind of swished her head around like, she's fine. But they continued, my father continued pursuing her, which she couldn't understand totally why. Maybe she said it was because she ignored him, where the other young ladies did not. And so she was very happy about that. But their love grew, and he proposed, even though at one point she said that she asked him, when are you going to tell me that you love me? Because he told her, before she asked that question, you're going to be the mother of my children. So she goes, well, when are you going to tell me that you love me? And he said to her, when I do. So that's how their relationship started out. But it was such a beautiful relationship, one of expectations, high expectations from my grandparents on both sides. But high expectations also from my mother and my father. But as my mother said, she had no idea what she was getting into. And she says, look at our wedding picture. It looks so wonderful, doesn't it? I said, of course it does. You look beautiful, you look happy. She goes, the night before, we had the largest fight of our relationship. And we did not know, going down the aisle, if we would go through with it. And so that's kind of a lesson to a lot of us. You never know, right? You want to pursue it, and then something comes up, and there's a big red flag or challenge, and then you go through it and you work through it, and they just still to this day, every time I talk to her, she tells me how much she loves my father.
That's absolutely beautiful. And I think because that relationship was so rich and enduring within the household, they also had a very great professional relationship. So could you talk about that as your father became deeply entrenched in movement work?
So when they got married, right after they got married, my father got approached from Dr. T.R.M. Howard in Mount Bayou, Mississippi, and asked him to join in the Magnolia Life Insurance Company, but also to join him in the Regional Council for Negro Leaders. And that was because Dr. Howard heard about how my father at Alcorn pursued the education. Sometimes a lot of that voice was pursued in dances or on the green, where he could get someone to listen to him about equal rights and what you need to do to learn about having voting rights and what it will do for you to help our life in equity. And so Dr. Howard pursued him, and my father accepted and moved my mother up to Mount Bayou. And at that point, my mother also became an employee. And before she had my brother Daryl Kenyatta, and before she had me, we are 15 months apart, so it was like quick. And so their working status was always professional. They and that was really my father's call and my mother's desire to. And so in the workplace, they called each other Mr. and Mrs. Evers. And, you know, except for one or couple times where it would be lunch and no one would be coming up for appointments, and they would have a lunch together and they didn't have to call each other Mr. and Mrs.
Thank you.
But they just, their work ethic was the same, and that's one thing that my father mentioned to my mother, that's what interested him in her, because of the way that she carried herself and how curious and how determined she was and how detail-oriented she still is. And if you ever go into the collections, and Miss Katie Blount can attest to this, that she kept everything and made details about every movement. And so that was an advantage to be his secretary.
Thank you for that, Ms. Renna. And of course, so that demonstrates to this audience that, of course, they had a beautiful marriage, beautiful children, but of course it translated across to the professional workplace, and that's why they were able to, in sync, do the work that needed to be done to advance Mississippi and move it forward. You talk about mentorship, and of course the fact that Dr. T.R.M. Howard saw this servant leadership quality in your father. And your father served as a mentor to so many young people. Of course, you know my affinity for Tougaloo College, but young people at Tougaloo College, and young people in communities across the state of Mississippi, and especially with the founding of NAACP youth councils in Laurel, Mississippi, and also one here in Jackson. And that was some infectious work that he was doing, because young people were joining the movement and embracing the cause. But Ms. Renna, if you would talk about your father's support of young people being active in the movement, and why was that so important to him, that young people be involved?
Well, I believe he saw it I know he saw it at a very young age when he was growing up, because there were changes in his neighborhood, I'll just say, because in his neighborhood it was integrated, and that's Decatur, Mississippi. And he went to school up until a certain point with black and white. And so, but it got to a certain age group, primarily, if you would call it now, middle school and up, where there was no interaction, or the interaction became a negative interaction against blacks at that time. And so, well, yeah, I'll just say at that time, right now. But he knew that his playmates around him, his friends, all wanted to make a change. But he was the one that was the most outspoken. But what happened is that he went away because he wanted to not escape, but he wanted to follow his brother Charles into the army. Part of it was because of the treatment of Negroes at that time and the lynching that happened of his family friend, Mr. Tingle. And seeing how the adults in all Negro families reacted when they would walk through their streets or the woods and would see bloodied clothes, either from him or from others who had been lynched and killed. And so to come back with the youth component of it is that when he went away and he came back to the States and he came back to Mississippi, he vowed to go ahead and make Mississippi a better place, because as has been said, that he did not want to leave it. It was his state, and it was a state for all. But it was at that time when you were an adult and you were a Negro, if you spoke up, you would either follow in the way of Mr. Tingle, or first you would lose a job, you would lose a house, you would lose if you owned any, if you had anything on loan, you would lose all of that. But he saw how eager that their children wanted to know about the move, about what was happening. And they kept on saying that they wanted to be involved. So he pulled in, along with so many others, pulled in the youth, because they did not think that the youth would get attacked as much as the adults. So when he started the NAACP Youth Council, of course it was after he got with the NAACP, which is in 1955, it was signed, the contract was signed. But it was also after he was helping with the Emmett Till case. And the Emmett Till case was what made him fight. I'm sorry, I'm getting, it gets you. And so I'm trying to contain some emotions, because I was just with the Emmett Till family talking about this again. And just to see the pictures of Emmett Till in his demise, it broke my father down, as it did so many of us around the world. And he said that he would never let a child go through that again. And if he could educate the children so they could know different ways, kind of what he trained us in survival mode, but in policy, in education, that's why he utilized the youth, because they just were like sponges. And they were fearless in their movements. So I hope that that brought part of it because he just valued their voices by fighting oppression and racism. And for those who decided to really take up the fight for freedom, he embraced and enhanced everything they could do because he didn't want them to be silenced. He wanted to always make sure that they were equipped with everything in order to be on the front lines.
Thank you, Ms. Renna. And I think that's a good segue for us, but also to add a shameless plug, Katie, I hope you all don't mind. There is a traveling exhibit that will be coming here, opening on April 1st, of an exhibit dedicated to Emmett Till and his mother, Mamie Till. So we hope that you all will visit the museums to see that, because Medgar Evers played a critical role in that particular case. And of course, scholarship has shown over and over again that when young people got involved in the movement, as scary as it could have been, as scary as it was, those fears were allayed, and this was the impetus. That murder of that 14-year-old boy in Money, Mississippi was the impetus for youth activism. And of course, with support from people like Medgar and Myrlie Evers, that movement or that campaign that young people led was extremely successful and effective. So thank you for that one, Ms. Renna.
Ms. Daphne,
Yes.
if I could just add one other, because I cannot not have this out, because it's so important, and you're actually there at Tougaloo, and it is so important of the connection between my father and Tougaloo, and the importance of the students there at that time. And the Tougaloo 9, and I just want to read one quote, if that's all right with you. The Tougaloo 9 was so pivotal in the movement as being a nonviolent movement. And so my father wrote to the head of the NAACP at that time, Roy Wilkins, and he stated, and this was in 1961, these young people exhibited a great amount of courage in the face of mounting teaching and were reported in our local newspapers as being orderly, intelligent, and cooperative. He goes on to say this act of bravery and concern on the part of these 9 young people has seemed to electrify Negroes' desire for freedom here in Mississippi. And so he saw young people electrifying Mississippi for equality and freedom. I just wanted to, I couldn't leave out Tougaloo.
Thank you. Thank you. So, because your father believed in these young people, but he also believed in the state of Mississippi. He was a very optimistic person, did not shy away from his roots, but of course he understood that the freedom that he was fighting for abroad was not afforded to him and other people who looked like him when he returned to a Jim Crow Mississippi. Just in your own words, and of course understanding who your father was and how complex this state was at that particular time, would you speak to us about what you think his view of Mississippi today would be if he were here?
Well, okay, in my own words, I think he would feel like he's in familiar space. He worked really, really, really hard to have his home state be the best that it could be. But Mississippi right now, he will say that their strides have been made, but obviously not enough. Because really in the past decade, or more actually, we seem to be rolling back so much of the progress of suppression, so much of the progress of being free. Free to say, free to do, free to be equal, and free of suppression of voting rights and police brutality. It's rising up again. And we need to ask ourselves, why is that? Why are we going backwards when so many of us have gone, and our thought process, our hearts have gone to a compassion for all? Why are we allowing things to go backwards? A lot hasn't changed, as I said before. But you know, what keeps him going, which keeps his spirit within me, within us, is the hope and the faith of the next generation, which is where he poured his heart and soul in. Mississippi is a beautiful state. It is a state that has ills. It's a state that has pain, but it's a state that has a hope to change for all of humanity. But we need to think about some of the things that was said back when my father was here, when he did an economic boycott. But he did the economic boycott in Mount Bayou, but he also did it here in Jackson. And I say here because I am here in Jackson, I just can't be with you. Because in 1961, he did a campaign that encouraged Negroes in Jackson to stay off of Capitol Street. That was the retail area, as you all know. And to wage that war brought him in highlights again and in harm again. But the desire to quickly and hopefully permanently make everyone, but especially Negroes, first-class citizens with dignity, that was always forefront. So he made the appeal, and he said, for many years now, Negroes have lined Capitol Street in Jackson, Mississippi, spending their money where they could neither be employed as sales clerks, eat at lunch counters, nor be given courtesy titles as Mr., Mrs., or Miss. These indignities have, in a number of instances, been harsh, brutal, as well as humiliating. We cannot go back to humiliating any part of humanity. We have to continue to forge forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Renna. So, of course, you heard some in Medgar's words, but through his daughter, on what she thinks, of course, what he would think of Mississippi. But of course, Ms. Myrlie, let's hear her take on what she thinks of Mississippi today.
Well, she's not here. She's back in California, but she keeps up with what's going on. And hopefully, this June, she'll be back with us to honor her and to honor my father. But I tell you, she asked me, so why do I keep hearing Jackson rolling back in time? And she was talking about the House Bill 1020 and it being a contentious issue locally, but nationally. And she said, we have fought for equal rights the whole time I lived, from the 1930s until now. She goes, your father worked, and as her friend called out Goodrow. She feels that we are not listening to the voices of the citizens. She feels that there's always been a power struggle, but the power struggle is not for the betterment of all citizens. And she asked me, when is that going to change? And I asked her, when are you coming back? And she said to me, Renna, the movement will continue to go on. We need people who are at their best state of health, who have the compassion, but not just the compassion, but the fiery passion to move this through. And it's, instead of having a place where our top officials ask people on the media to, when they're on the media, to have people stay out of Jackson, because it's the most dangerous city in Jackson. Why are we putting our cultures divided again? Even the fear of making sure that where you are right now, the Mississippi Historical Society, still gets to be the Mississippi Historical Society for all, shows the truth and makes sure that all issues that we all know are structural and systemic.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Renna. So you gave us a look into what you think your father would have thought of Mississippi today, and of course your mother is paying very close attention to how things are rolling out here in the state of Mississippi. But again, as I mentioned earlier, this room is truly a reflection of what the best of this state has to offer, and we're glad to have you all here. Ms. Renna, as we get ready to come to a close for your questions from me before we open it up to the audience, what would you like the audience to take away about the life and legacy of your father and also that of your mother, since we are approaching June 2023 with commemorative activities?
Well, I just want to also, say, I want to give a shout out but I want to give a shout out to all the women of the movement. Not just because March is Women's Month, but the women of the movement have been the backbone also of the movement. They've been the one who's organized, along with the ones who really have pulled it all together, pulled all the fundraisings together, and they did that as mothers. They did that as educators. They did that as attorneys. And I just wanted to acknowledge them because they have been there, like my mother has been there, to make sure things continue, because the targets were mainly on the men's back, even though they were also on the family's back, including the women. So I would love to just say thank you to all of the women who participated in the movement for equality and freedom. And so, Daphne, you asked me about June. And I heard Miss Katie before mention, and you mentioned, about this is 60 years of his assassination. We are doing we being the Medgar and Myrlie Evers Institute, are spearheading the Voices of Courage and Justice, honoring Medgar and Myrlie Evers, June 6th through June 12th. Now, they're not all full days of activities. There are also activities with partners, such as the Mississippi Department of Archives and History, the National Park Service, and so many others. And so we're pleased that we're all coming together to honor not just Medgar and Myrlie Evers, but to honor all of our leaders in civil rights, in social justice. So we'll know who they are and will carry their history on. And so I ask you all, invite you all to be with us. We will be having tours, Evers Tour, Justice Tour, to talk about the different icons that we have in Mississippi and iconic places to visit. We will also be having an expo, which is a one-day on Thursday. But in the room that you're sitting right now, hopefully, we also will be honoring my mother for her benefit, for her, I can't even say the word right now, but her contributions to everything, not just in the civil rights movement, but also in the corporate arena, and in the family arena. So we have the largest event is on Friday the 9th, and that will be the gala, and that will be at the Jackson Convention Center. And we ask you to please come out, but just come and see us. We're going to be having speaker series throughout that week, and other activities that we're going to be putting up and out on social media. So you'll be able to see that soon. And you can contact us at info@eversinstitute.org, and we'll be happy to let you know what you can do as far as enjoy yourself and be a participant in this, what we want to call the Mississippi Homecoming, to show the good and to show the challenges of Mississippi.
Thank you, Ms. Renna. And as the in-person person, again, look out for more information on the Medgar Evers 60th, where we will also have an opportunity to celebrate Mrs. Myrlie Evers-Williams. We've come to just about a close to our session, but we did want to have time for questions for Ms. Renna. So are there any questions from the audience? Any questions? Just raise your hand, and Chris is walking around the room with the mic. Any questions?
I think this is a story that this group knows well. And I just wish I could be there to talk to you individually, and hope to see you very soon. And we will go ahead through this journey together in making sure that history is told, and is told truthfully, and for a very long time to all generations in every part of this world.
We have a hand over, one here and then one on the other side.
Hey, Miss Renna, it's Sarah Warnock. It's Sarah Warnock. Hi, Miss Renna. How you doing?
Hi, I can barely hear you.
Okay, I'm a little soft-spoken, so, you know, both your parents are so eloquent and so smart. I was wondering if in any of their writing and speeches, if they worked together on them.
Well, yes, they did. Actually, my mom was the editor of a lot of his speeches and correspondence that he had going out. And so he utilized her skills with that from the very beginning, actually before they got married.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Warnock. We have another question in the room, Ms. Renna.
Hello, Ms. Renna. My name is Chioma. I'm a graduate student at Jackson State University. And just because we're on the topic of the Medgar's legacy, and it just got me thinking about the Medgar's home and the rich history that your father has working with the youth in Jackson, what initiatives is the home taking to reach out to the students in the community?
And that's with the National Park Service. The National Park Service is, and I'm not sure if Superintendent Graham is in the space right now.
I don't
But
see her.
I will talk to what, I know there are some initiatives about asking them to, asking the youth to come and be docents or participate in some of the programs that they're doing. I don't want to speak directly for them, but I know with the Medgar and Myrlie Evers Institute, we are doing direct youth-led programs regarding virtual healing, and we have a Evers Youth Empowerment Scholars piece, and so we would love for you to be engaged with us in that, and we're doing actually a Gen Z summit, and so we would love to have you come and join us and everyone else. So that's a formal invitation.
Hi, Renna. This is Joyce Lawson.
Hi.
And I was wondering, with all the celebration or community going on in June, would any of it involve the home site in Decatur?
We are, the home site is just that, just a site. It's land right now. I wish the home was still there. But the tour will, yes, include that. And then actually we're speaking with the mayor of Decatur. So along with that, the mayor of Vicksburg is doing an event honoring my mother on June 4th. And so we're getting more details on that this week.
Are there any other questions? So that brings our session to a close, and I want to end on this note. You can kill a man, but you can't kill a dream. And we sitting in this room today, and of course, joined virtually by his daughter, Renna Evers-Everette, we are that dream made a reality. So thank you all for joining us for this conversation with Ms. Renna virtually, and we hope you get better soon. But let's thank our speaker for the afternoon.
Look forward to seeing you. I see some faces, but I look forward to seeing everyone else. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And just a few announcements as we get ready to transition into session 1, which will begin at 2:30 p.m. in this same room. So 2:30 in this room, we will be having our first session. So we're going to kindly ask that everyone vacate so we can prepare. Of course, this evening, the President's reception will be held at 5:30 p.m., and it will take place in the Hall of History. So please join us for fun, food, and fellowship. Dinner will follow that at 6:30 p.m. with the Book of the Year award presentation, and the award winner will also be giving his address at this time, so let's be present for that as well. And finally, we encourage all members of the Mississippi Historical Society to be members of the 2 Mississippi museums. There's a lovely table set out in front of you, and you all also receive the nice brochure. But as a member, you can visit anytime for free with your membership card, and you support Mississippi field trips in what Governor Winter called the largest classroom in the state. So please consider joining and becoming a member. And to learn more about museum membership benefits, please see Ms. Lori Quarles at the membership table. But again, thank you all for coming. And Ms. Renna, it was great to see you, and we hope you feel better soon.